afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's Education, Children and Families Policy Committee. The meeting today is open to the public. There are no items that contain exempt information. The meeting will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view through the Council's website. It could also be possible that Sheffield Live may record and rebroadcast the meeting. We have no public questions, statements or petitions this month. So please can I request that people in the chamber put their mobile phones and such devices onto silent so as not to disturb the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is a fire alarm that goes off, we will need to evacuate the building, and please follow the town hall staff to the assembly point on Tudor Square. I'll now go around and ask each member of the committee to introduce yourselves, and I'll go this way first. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Glynis Chapman, a councillor from Osborough Ward, and I'm a substitute for Councillor Richard Williams.
Good afternoon. My name is Councillor Gail Smith, and I am also a Osborough Ward councillor.
Good afternoon, I'm Anne Whittaker. I'm Councillor for West Ecclesfield Ward and Lib Dem Group spokesperson for this committee.
Good afternoon, my name is Councillor Malachi Haby and I'm the Councillor for the Broomhill and Sharrow Vale Ward.
Good afternoon, I'm Councillor Toby Mallinson, Deputy Chair and Councillor for Hillsborough.
Hi, I'm Mia Drazik. I'm Councillor for Park and Harbourthorne Ward.
Hi, I'm Councillor Nika Bisharat for Netheridge and Sharrow Ward.
Hello, Rob Bannister, Councillor for Groves Park Ward.
Thank you. I'll ask officers to introduce yourselves when you come up to speak. Thank you. I do have apologies from Councillor Richard Williams. And as I stated before, there are no exclusions, items on the agenda which excludes, goodness me, the public or press. Item number 3 on the agenda is declarations of interest. I must declare an interest on agenda item number 14. I am employed by an organisation that coordinates HAF provision, but I'm not employed by that contract within that organisation. Does anyone else have any declarations of interest? Councillor Bannister.
Same item, item 14. My company, Housescape Park, provides HAF provision during the holidays and I'm the coordinator for it.
Thank you. If I could just take some legal advice from Sherry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dale. So, obviously on discussions with yourself, I think that you've declared that interest. As I say, it doesn't affect your financial position, so you're able to continue to join the debate. I believe that you are, it is obviously affects yours, so that you will have to actually leave the meeting for that item. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more declarations of interest? No. Thank you very much. So we're going to go to the minutes of the previous meeting on page 11 of your agenda pack. I am assuming that everyone will have read their minutes. So we'll go from page 11, page 12, sorry, bear with me 1 second. Page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17 and page 18. Are we any matters arising from those minutes? Do we all agree that those minutes are a true record of the previous meeting? Thank you, that's agreed. So we don't have any public petitions, questions or statements, apart we've got somebody hammering outside. It's very loud. Apologise to anyone listening at home if you can hear that. And we have no members' questions. So that takes us directly to agenda item number 7 on page 21 of your pack, which is the work programme. And Rachel, you're going to talk us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. The committee work programme is laid out from page 21 of the main agenda pack. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. And if you look at page 22, you will see 3 recommendations there midway through that we will be asking the committee to agree today. In section 4 of the report, there is proposed additions and amendments to the work programme since the last meeting. You will see that there's a few movements there, and beyond page 26, so starting on page 27, you will see the agenda items for forthcoming meetings. Obviously that's now really shrunk down because we are at the end of the municipal year, and the new work programme will begin in the new municipal year after the AGM. There will also be, it's probably worth me highlighting actually now at this time, that there will be some work programming events that will be arranged to be set up with the committee members after the AGM and officers to sort of hash out what the future work programme might look like and what other items might want to come on there. But that is open to you now as well to discuss as a committee and to suggest items. And I'll pass back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Do we have any questions or comments on the work programme? Councillor Bannister.
Only a request that the Play Partnership programme be brought to the committee at some point. So I think we've requested it before, but it's not made as far as the, even the haven't been added yet. So if we could add that, that'd be super.
Thank you. So can we add that on? Is everybody in agreement? Thank you. Okay, so that takes us now on to agenda item number 8 on page 29 of your agenda pack, which is the establishment of the Task and Finish group. And we've got Steve Kay coming up to speak to us on this. Thank you.
Okay, so by way of background, the Task and Finish group followed correspondence from January 2026 from local parents and volunteers involved in smartphone free childhood South Yorkshire movement. Contacted all councillors to raise concerns about early smartphone and social media use among children and young people in Sheffield. The letter highlighted a range of potential wellbeing impacts and prompted committee to consider how this could be explored in a structured and evidence-led way. So I'm here to ask the committee to note the Task and Finish group on promoting smartphone-free childhood has been convened, and it was first held at the meeting on the 23rd of March 2026. The report asked the committee to endorse the proposed terms of reference, and there are some slight amendments to those which I can talk about, which were asked at the first meeting. Members will note the published version of the report alongside the accompanying terms of reference has been refined as of the Task and Finish group yesterday. I believe that's on screen now. And for transparency, these amended versions will be published. I'll now just briefly take the committee through what changes have been made. So under 1.3, the third bullet point, schools interested in smartphone-free environments to be replaced with schools in their management of smartphones and education about their healthy and age-appropriate use. Under 1.4, it said that previously the group will begin its work on the 23rd of March 2026 and will provide interim updates as required with a full report and recommendations submitted to the Education, Children and Family Committee in June 2026. So this is to be replaced with a progress update will be reported to the June 2026 committee meeting with a full report and final recommendations to be submitted to the Education, Children and Family Committee by September 2026. Under 2.1, previously it said voluntary community sector partners. Now it says voluntary community sector and faith sector partners. Under 3.1, The group will meet every 4 to 6 weeks. This will be replaced with frequently. Under 3.2, it says to June 2026 committee meeting, change highlighted to September 2026. Under 4.1, the last bullet point, to an additional bullet point, seek and consider the views from children and young people, including Sheffield Youth Cabinet, alongside from national children's charities and Len Sheffield. Under 4.3, review best practice models from UK and international schools that have been adopted smartphone-free policies. A revision is review a range of approaches adopted by UK and international schools in managing smartphone use, including but not limited to smartphone-free policies. And finally, under 4.5, a new bullet point, which is the Task and Finish Group will seek a balanced range of perspectives to ensure its findings and recommendations are robust, evidence-led and reflective of the diversity of views across the city.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions or comments on this item? No? Thank you very much. So the recommendation is that we note that the Task and Finish Group is promoting a smartphone-free childhood, has been convened and will hold its first meeting, which we did yesterday, that we endorse the terms of reference and scope of the group as set out in Appendix A, and agree that the Task and Finish Group will report its findings, conclusions and recommendations by September 2026. Do we all agree? Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve. So that takes us on to agenda item number 9, which is the school calendar, and John is going to be presenting this. If I can just ask that you all find your names and then put them up and then take them down when you leave, that'd be great, thank you, because there's quite a few cards on there. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'll just put my name up. Thank you. Sorry, that's got more sophisticated, so bear with me. So this is the annual request to approve the school calendar for community and voluntary controlled schools. The proposed calendar is on page 35 of your agenda, and we consulted on this from the 8th of January through to the 20th of February. Only received 2 responses, and we did consult widely. Both were in favour of the calendar. So the request is to approve the calendar for 2027-28. Would you like me to get the calendar up, Councillor Dale, or can you all see it?
We've got it, thank you, but if you're looking for it, it's on page 51 in our pack.
Oh, right.
Yes, we've got some extra pages.
Apologies, it's there.
Yeah, that's fine. We've got it, thank you.
Okay. Happy to take any questions, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on this item? I think this is our standard item at this time of year. Councillor Smith. Can you put your microphone on? Gail, sorry, microphone.
Is this calendar for all schools in Sheffield? Do the academies all agree with our calendar before we get to this stage?
They do largely follow the same calendar. It only applies to community schools and voluntary controlled schools. The majority of all schools, including academies, do follow this. The only ones that don't sometimes are the church-aided schools at Easter, because they have different holidays that they stick to. But by and large, most schools
just that
follow
if you've
this.
got a child at an infant school and then junior schools are separate, or vice versa with the older school kids, it all needs to be working together, doesn't it? That was my question. So on the whole, all schools follow this calendar.
They do, and that example also applies if a parent might work in Sheffield, but the kids go to school in Derbyshire or Rotherham.
Yeah.
So we do try and consolidate the calendars. Although we're not in control of that,
No.
we do consult with neighbouring authorities to try and do that for that reason.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments on this item? Thank you. So the recommendation is that we approve the school calendar for the year 2027-2028. Are we all in agreement? Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks, John. So now we're on agenda item number 10, which is children in care and children's homes sufficiency, and Lindsay's going to be presenting today. And Sally.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lindsay Knight, Assistant Director in Children and Families, and I'm here to talk through the paper in relation to the expansion of our in-house children's homes. I know that people have got sight of the paper, so I'm just going to pull out some of the key points over the next few minutes just to illustrate why we're asking for an expansion on the current provision. And this home will specifically be for younger children with a view to them eventually stepping down into foster care or family arrangements. I thought it would be helpful to set out the national and local context linked to sufficiency. Currently, Ofsted have recently published an annual report, and they found that between 2015 to 2016 and 2023 to 2024, the local authority spending on cared for children increased from 3.9 billion to 8.1 billion, taking the annual cost of care of a child to £97,000 a year. This far outpaces the inflation rates and significantly reflects the current pressures that local authorities are under. In terms of the national context, the majority of cared for children are in foster care, with around 67%, with 12% of children being accommodated in children's homes, including secure homes. The number of children living in children's homes and secure homes has increased by 9% since 2024, and regrettably we still see a high percentage of children placed outside of the local authority boundary. In Sheffield specifically, we've seen an increase in higher cost placements, increasing by 57% from December 22 to December 25. And in the same period, the number of our children under 10 in residential care has gone from 0 to 9. The paper outlines our intentions to continue to increase our own internal provision, and I came to committee around 12 months ago to provide an update in relation to the residential strategy, and I shared the transformation progress. Since last year, all our homes continue to provide excellent care. We are now seeing that the changes are fully embedded, and this inspection cycle has seen 3 homes move from good to outstanding, and the remaining homes are as a strong good from Ofsted, which we're really proud of. I think it's always important to set out some of the findings from our recent Ofsted reports, and I'd just like to share a few extracts with you to help with the context. Staff provide the children with nurturing and unconditional care. They are aspirational for the child. Staff said they feel supported and valued by their manager and wider leadership team, who have a strong presence in the home. Relationship-based therapeutic practice is fully embedded in the love and care provided to the children, and relationships are at the heart of the home. Children only move on when it's the right time, helping them develop a sense of belonging and permanence. And leaders are inspirational and confident. They strive for children to achieve their full potential. We're moving at pace in terms of the expansion plans now, and we've successfully registered a brand new children's home, and we've already sought agreement for a further 2-bed home. If we're able to gain approval today, this would enable the council to provide 6 children with homes in their city, close to their family, schools and networks where they belong. And this is incredibly important for their outcomes. As service lead, I'm really confident with the transformation of the service, the improved outcomes for our children, that we can continue to deliver excellent homes built on love, nurture and aspirational care. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on this item? Toby.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it's a very difficult situation, and we need to absolutely agree with trying to increase the number of in-house placements. I've just got a question about the graph on page 63, which shows an increase in the numbers. I just want to double confirm that that graph is just the higher cost placements, or is it all placements?
So the graph relates to all our children in children's homes, so they are high cost placements compared to family-based care. So that does relate to children in children's homes provision.
All children in children's homes, right, okay. And that includes the out-of-city ones and the private ones and so on, right, okay. It's obviously a worrying trend. I think you alluded that it's a national trend, the sort of increase. Is there a point when it started? Was it COVID or at all? Does anyone know the reason why the number is increasing?
At time of around COVID, that's when we saw pressures with our foster carers. We've known for some time, and I know we're coming on to a fostering item as well, about the ageing population of foster carers, and that's something that's impacted nationally. And unfortunately, at the same time, people have seen that there is a market in providing children's homes. I think, as we've mentioned before, that's been looked at for Competition and Markets Authority and what that looks like in the profiteering. So, as it was that time around COVID and around the sufficiency in the fostering market, unfortunately, it's led to profiteering in this area as well.
So it's a sort of shortage of foster carers that's really driving it, rather than increasing needs, i.e. they can't be catered for in foster caring. It's that there isn't the foster carers for it.
I think we've got complexity of needs, different needs of children, so there is the issue around a shortage of foster carers, but what we've seen in all other areas, and thinking about things like our special educational need pressures and what that looks like nationally, we have got those increased complexities of children and young people, and particularly some things around emotional well-being and what mental health support looks like. For some children, I think it's really important to say children's home and that care is right, and that Lindsay's talked about some of the feedback we've had from us own in-house homes, and being able to be assured about what that quality is and what that outcomes of children is, and making sure that we are getting that right with right outcomes. So it is about those right plans for right children.
Thanks.
Councillor Smith.
Sorry. I'd like to say thank you for the work that you've done. It's fantastic to hear that the most vulnerable children in our society are being well cared for. So thanks to you and all your staff in all the homes, because it is so important to know that our vulnerable children are being cared for. So thank you for the work that you've done.
Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you for the report, and I'd echo what Councillor Smith has said also. We're talking about this new home being for children who are under 10. And then I think I read in the report where we're talking about within the 2-year period of them being fostered or back into family care in some way. And then we also talk about that if they've got complex needs, they might not be suitable to be fostered. So is the provision for those children to remain in these homes, even though they'll get to a point when they're over 10 years old, or would they be moved on at that point? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So our intentions are to continually review children's care plans we're clear that children's homes aren't the ending point, and they should never be looked upon as that. So we should always be thinking about what that next plan is. I think, as I set out in the Ofsted, some of the Ofsted extracts, our children move on when they're ready, and that's really important. We have put a kind of time frame around that, but we're confident that with the skill set of our staff team, with our connections with our in-house fostering provision, but also the work that we've been doing really successfully with birth families, that actually we can start to think about moving children onto their next chapter within that time frame. But of course, if that isn't right for that child at that particular moment, then that care plan will continue to be reviewed, so that we can ensure that that next chapter is absolutely right for that child and for them to continue to develop and achieve full potential.
So if we had a child that had been there for 2 years and it was considered not suitable to move them on, so they were going to remain in this home, after the 2 years, is that when we start to see some savings in terms of the cost of the care?
Yes, so if we are at a point where that child could potentially step down into foster care, or even reunification back to birth family or wider connections in their family, then there would be significant savings, because we wouldn't be paying for that full care package in a residential home, which is the most expensive. Yeah.
Councillor Haby.
So thank you for bringing the report. I echo what Councillor Smith said. Massive thank you to that. Just one question, clarification. On page 59 it says building a 1-2 bedroom home, and on the executive summary it says 2 new bedroom homes. I may have missed something, but just for clarification purposes. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's a typo. It is 1 2-bed home. Yeah, we've already had 1 2-bed home already approved, and this is for the second, so it's a typo. Yeah.
So just switch that to 1.
It's just 1, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Bannister.
Yeah, just want to say keeping our children in our city is absolutely the right move. The outcomes proved time and time again. And like you said about bringing them back to the birth families as well, you can't, it's going to be a lot more difficult through in Portsmouth. The other thing I was going to ask is, are we looking at other places around the city? I'm thinking maybe about parts of our own estate. Things like caretaker houses in parks that are perhaps no longer being used. I can think of a few around the city, which I think it might be something that maybe, I know it's not a zero cost thing, but it might be a way we could look to do it at some point.
So in terms of areas at City, we've got looked after children from all areas at City, so it's important that we consider everywhere in City as potential homes. And the conversations are ongoing about what properties are right. We want homes that are homes for children, not going back to previous large homes and properties that are quite institutionalised. So we are absolutely open to conversations, and we're doing that across the council.
Thank you. Before I go on to the recommendations, I would just like to say a few words, if that's okay. I'd like to thank Lindsay, who's going to be leaving us, and this will be Lindsay's last ECF meeting, and I've had the pleasure of having a really good relationship with Lindsay over the last couple of years, and the ambition and aspiration that Lindsay has had for our children and children's homes has just been mind-blowing, and I've managed to watch the conditions and the environment that you've set, Lindsay, for the people that look after our children has helped them to be the best that they can be. And I really do value that. That's absolutely coming from my heart. And one of the best lines in a report that I've seen from Ofsted was the role that we play and the staff in the home played in co-parenting children with their family and encouraging the relationships to remain where appropriate with that child's family so that they still felt connected. And I just want to thank you, Lindsay, from myself and from the committee and from the children in Sheffield for all the work that you've done for them. And we you've set us on the path. We've now got 3 outstanding children's homes, and the others won't be far behind thanks to you. So thank you very much. Thank you. So the recommendations on this report are to approve the expansion of Sheffield Children's Home provision through the establishment of one new two-bedroom residential home. So if we can amend that on the record, please, for children under 12, and improve the diversion of funding from the existing placement revenue budget to meet the ongoing operational costs in the new home. Do we agree? That's agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so now we're at agenda item number 11, which is the Medical Needs Education Service Chapel House contract expansion of places on page 75. And you're not Bridget, so we've got Polly and Jo. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies, Bridget couldn't make it today, so I've stepped in to support Polly. From one expansion to another, this is the expansion of our medical education provision for children with medical needs. And Polly is our lead commissioner on this, so I'm going to hand over to Polly to talk us through the proposal and the recommendations.
Thank you. So, many of you may be aware about our medical needs education service, which we commission as Kingfisher School in the Chapel House in Hillsborough Barracks. Now, currently, Nexus Academy Trust run this provision, and what it does is provide an alternative education service for children who are too unwell to attend school. Now, many of these children, the reason for them being too unwell is through mental health issues. Some of them have been inpatients and have now transitioned to being outpatients, and some also have physical issues that may mean that they cannot attend school. And what Kingfisher School provides is an environment with much smaller classes, specialised individual attention, flexible timetables, and a really kind of easy, understanding environment for these children that knows that they might not be able to attend full-time hours. Provision is excellent. So of the year 11s in place last year, 82% received qualifications in English and maths, and 100% of them progressed to a good post-16 destination. 100% of parents are happy, and feedback from children shows that they say things like, "This helps me to concentrate at school, and I've been able to make progress since I've been at Chapel House." Now, we currently have 130 places at Chapel House, and the contract is ending at the end of this academic year. We're already on track to exceed 130 places this year, so Kingfisher/Chapel take as many students as they get referred that need accepting, but we will exceed 130 places this year, so that's why we're looking to extend the provision for another 2 years, but increase place numbers from 130 to 169, which was where we put predicted demand at the end of 2 years. We're looking to renew with Nexus Academy Trust, the same provider, partly because the provision is excellent. We think they're doing really well. So demand for this service is high. We're seeing increased demand for such services across the country. Sheffield is no exception here. Some of the issues, for example, are increased waits for CAMS services. And many children, once they get to the point of being referred to Chapel House, have not been attending school for some time. And the priority is really to get them back into an educational setting so that they can get to age 16 and be able to go to a new destination with more confidence, more understanding of themselves, and in a position where they can have some educational success. So Chapel House, the acceptance of referrals is very strict, so they only take children where it is clear that it is a health problem that is preventing them from attendance at school, and yet still at every panel, we have a huge list of cases to consider. The provision is excellent value at around 14.2k per place, which is much less than other external provisions, partly because they've got that scale at 130 places. Now, by expanding from 130 to 169 places, the contract value grows from 1.8 to 2.4 million. Now, we don't need to absorb the entire cost of extending that contract because we're also able to draw on ARPU income that goes to schools, which schools then have to forward to Chapel in relation to any students that they send to Chapel. So the amount of additional income that we're looking for over 2 years is around £310,000. Now, the provision expanding also comes with additional benefits. So Chapel House are going to be taking on an additional building next to the building that they've got currently, and that means that they can split Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 3 provision, and that, they think, will really help with the idea that Key Stage 3 students are there to be reintegrated where possible, because they won't see the Key Stage 4 students in the same building and think, oh, that'll be me. So the idea is to get these students back into school. It will also mean that they can provide a fuller curriculum across the year and more hours for pupils, which coincides with being able to have better transport provision. So rather than students going in taxis, we're looking at minibuses. So you've got that saving as well, which it's not a sort of directly cashable saving against this budget, but it's a positive thing to be doing. So that's why we think this is important. This is statutory provision. We're meeting our Section 19 obligations by making sure that we're able to provide a school education to students. And I'm incredibly satisfied that this is excellent provision, which is giving the best possible chance to these students. So that's what I'd ask you to approve.
Thank you very much, Polly. Do we have any questions or comments on this? Councillor Whittaker.
Oh, am I on? Got a funny screen there. This is obviously an example of what excellent alternative provision looks like, and something that we should be aiming to have as much of as basically we need, if money permits. And it does creates positive outcomes for children and young people. And I think it's important that we do the next round of funding for this expansion, so we can get more children in there and hopefully more children then back to mainstream school. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Councillor Mellington.
Thank you. Thanks for all the work you're doing on this. I am, in some ways, the increase, in my mind, is a symptom of the problems we have in schools with the increasing number of exclusions as well, and the increasing crisis in SEND. Schools are just not inclusive, and therefore we're needing to expand other services, which is, this isn't directed at you, this is just a statement. I think it's a symptom of a huge malaise, which, hopefully we will be trying to address in the city. Obviously it's a nationwide thing as well. But schools just are not inclusive, and I believe a lot of the students who go to Kingfisher School are sort of essentially school phobic. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So they are, just not fitting into mainstream school as is, which is a terrible thing. I do have a couple of questions about a table on page 80, table 2, how increased costs will be funded. It just doesn't look like it adds up, so I just want, if possible, a bit of an explanation about that. So if you look at table 2, the current contract column, top line, it says total annual contract value 1.8 million.
Yep.
And then the amount of money that's funding that at the bottom is about 2.1 million, so it's about 300,000 difference there.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
So we do actually have an underspend this year. Now that's partly because this contract is not the only line in that budget. So this budget also funds education for inpatient stays, and that cost has been lower than expected this year. So we do have an underspend this year, which is great. Unfortunately, we can't just carry that over to the next year. That gets reabsorbed back into DSG. But you're right, that's why it doesn't add up.
Okay. And then the second question is, there's a row which is additional DSG required in this table, which is zero in the current year, and it goes up to just over 100,000 next year, and then the following year it's almost 200,000. So that's all, I suppose you could almost say it's balanced with what you've just said, but that is extra money coming out of DSG, and the question is sort of, obviously DSG is allocated to all sorts of things. What is being cut to fund that?
We haven't decommissioned anything in order to commission this, but you are right, there is an overspend, and this is adding to that overspend.
Okay, so it's adding to the sort of general overspend?
Yeah.
Okay, understand.
Could I just come back you're talking about schools and inclusivity, and I think there's some points there that Joe might want to address, but it's worth also just highlighting the WINGS programme that we commissioned.
I was going to say that, and I do apologise. I meant to say
okay.
I read that, and I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's been going really well. We've worked with a number of schools, slowly helping to change that practice and help schools to understand how to recognise early signs of school avoidance and put in place practices to reduce that. Now, that hasn't kind of reversed the tide, but we have seen really good feedback from schools, and we have seen students to whom it's made a real difference, so we're continuing that, and I do think it's positive.
Yeah, obviously the more work that goes on in that, the better. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just a quick point on the dedicated schools grant, the DSG. As Polly says, we haven't decommissioned anything in order to support this provision, but it's really important to understand that this is a statutory service. It's a statutory requirement that we meet this need, and it will have significant benefits for the children accessing it already and for other children, the additional children. It will allow a broader curriculum, and it will, we believe, reduce travel costs. So, you know, as a result of that, you know, we feel it is something that is needs to be funded from dedicated schools grant. But yeah, thank you for the question.
Any more questions or comments on this report? Councillor Bannister.
Just want to say that I think the additional money you're asking for is a pretty cheap price to play for the excellent work you're doing, and like you say, statutory work that we have to be doing. I think it's looking very well managed, and the expansion of this chapel house can only be a good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we are being asked on this report, the recommendation is that we approve the commissioning of the Medical Needs Education Service for 2 years from September 2026 with an estimated total of 4.68 million, and notes that the expansion will increase capacity from 130 places to 161 in year 1 and 169 places in year 2, whilst keeping the average cost per place below £14.2 thousand per child. Are we all agreed? Thank you very much. That's agreed. Thank you. Okay, so we now move on to agenda item number 12, which is our foster payment review and loan scheme. And Dean is going to be presenting this one to us. And it's on page 97. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dean Howson. Is it on?
No.
No. Is that on now? Good afternoon. I'm Dean Howson. I'm the Assistant Director of Children and Families. I'm presenting to you this afternoon seeking approval on the additional policy change which will allow us to incorporate a skill level fee increase payment over 2 subsequent years in 27-28 and 28-29. The backdrop to that being that there's been a recent decision given to increase the inflationary foster care fee skill level payments in the year 26 to 27. So this will actually carry on that agreement for a further 2 years in line with the policy update. In terms of backdrop to that, it's really important to recognise, alongside colleagues who oversee our children's homes, recognising that our foster carers in Sheffield provide one of the largest and valuable resources for children requiring and needing family-based care. So the skill level payments would actually be supportive of that. It will allow the council to demonstrate meeting its sufficiency duty around fostering provision, but equally while recognising the value and contribution that fostering families make to children in Sheffield. So it will actually demonstrate the value that we actually place on the quality of our foster carers and allow us to support our recruitment and retention ambitions for the council over the 3-year period, where we want to recruit and retain more foster carers for Sheffield children, giving us greater opportunities to keep children being cared for in Sheffield and having to be reliant on going out to external markets that take children away from home. So that's the first priority area for us in terms of being able to sustain that ability to care for children within Sheffield. We're seeking approval this afternoon for that policy to be reviewed at the end of that 3-year period, so obviously within timescale for that to look at whether the changing market requires any further amendment to that in subsequent years. But for now, where we are looking at building in the inflationary mechanism of a maximum of 4%, we feel is in line with the national agenda and what other competitors are actually providing. That's it in relation to the fostering fee level of payments that we are seeking approval for this afternoon. The report has got detail in there around some of our recent challenges around recruitment and seeing that recruitment numbers in fostering have declined in recent years. But by bringing things back into line with the competitive market, we feel more optimistic and ambitious that we can start to really refresh our recruitment campaign and actually make Sheffield an attractive place to foster and then bring people to us as opposed to going to any of our competitors. So we're really keen to promote that through our recruitment campaign. I think the other part of that is the retention of foster carers, and we work closely with our foster carers. We have a representative group called Voices, and foster care representatives have contributed to conversations around the future direction of travel for Sheffield with fostering. And at this point in time, that arrangement is currently being refreshed to look at broader and wider ways in which we can communicate with foster carers and engage and consult with them about the future direction of travel. The second part of our report this afternoon is seeking approval from committee around diverting £50,000 worth of funding from our current placement budget into a loan scheme for our foster carers, which, as the paper indicates, will allow for some minor level adaptations within fostering homes where opportunities are already presented to demonstrate that if we use those resources effectively, existing foster carers and those considering fostering can adapt rooms within their properties sufficiently to actually meet the fostering standard, which will automatically create new opportunities for more children to be placed with our approved families. So the diversion of those funds will be a pilot but wise investment to allow us to test that opportunity and see the quality of care that comes through for those children, which may then lend us towards coming back to a future request if it's successful as we anticipate it will be.
Thank you, Dean. Has anyone got any questions on this one? Councillor Drazik.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to know if you could explain in a bit more detail how the loan works. Is it going to be advertised? Because I was under the impression you had to already be a foster carer in order to access it, but would it be available for new people so that we can use it to recruit as well?
So, as you'll probably appreciate, the amount that we're talking about is not an infinite amount of money. We're talking about a well-controlled, managed, relational arrangement whereby we understand the foster carers we're working with, where they've got potential capacity and opportunity to adapt a room within their home. That will be part of the ongoing assessment about that being a realistic and viable option. And it's also entering into an agreement whereby that loan, if agreed, is the right way forward for that carer to then likely to be approved and be able to care for more children, will be managed on a depreciation basis whereby they commit to caring for children for the length of that funding agreement. So this is not a large amounts of money. We're talking about bedroom renovation, etc. So it's about having that working relationship rather than it being advertised and something that becomes the draw factor. This is about actually saying this is about meeting the needs of children, and if you've got capacity in your home that we can assess and agree with, then of course we would make that loan available.
Thank you, Dean. Sally, can I just ask you to turn your microphone off, please? No, because it won't go off. There you go.
That's it.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Councillor Rossi? Councillor Mallison.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate the fund to fund home modifications. That sounds like an excellent idea. You know, we have got year on year, I think you'd agree, reduction in the number of foster carers, which is really worrying. So anything that helps reverse that decline, and obviously actually increasing how much they get after many years of it, I think, being static without any inflationary increase is a good thing as well. But in a sense, it sounds like there's quite a bit of catching up to do, you know, because we need to reverse that decline, and one way would be to be even more generous. I don't know if that would be possible in future years, because we are saving a lot of money by getting people into foster care as compared to children's homes or out of city placements and stuff, so private placements. So, you know, just reducing that gap slightly from the bottom would be a good solution. I would posit. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have to reflect that the market is buoyant, and I think what we recognise is that the fostering services across the whole country have been under the same pressures. The recruitment and retention of foster carers is often depictive of the fees that various agencies pay. I think local authorities are in competition with private providers and profit-making organisations that have to be tested, and we have to be realistic in terms of what we're trying to offer being an attractive offer based on the kind of restrictions and the recommendations, and looking at the national agenda and all the recommendations from the social care reforms. And I think part of this is making ourselves competitive rather than kind of focusing on what we might call catch-up. I think it really is looking at becoming competitive and comparable to our equal partners, as opposed to trying to achieve some of the higher levels that we know some profit-making organisations and others can make. But that's largely because of the profits that they're able to rechannel back into their fee levels. At the minute, it wouldn't be particularly credible for the local authority to try and demonstrate the same model.
Thank you. I was just lessening the gap rather than catching up. But the other thing, I just got another question about a graph on page 105, 2.3.6. It's just a bit confusing. It says, while some of this reduction in capacity has been mitigated by the use of independent fostering agency care, we are seeing increasing numbers of young people placed in higher cost residential care, increasing by 57% between January 2023 and January 2026, from 61 to 97. And then there's a graph which seems to go from about 61, but it doesn't go to 97, it goes to 170, which is more like a 250% increase. So which one is it, is the question?
Sorry. In that graph, there's a typo initially, about 57%. So that needs to be corrected. That's 37%. The numbers, when we add them up, are actually the number on the graph of 150. I think it's near 150 on the graph. Is the cumulative number of the supported accommodation and fostering arrangement provisions, which is why it's 150 on the graph, not 97.
Sorry, residential.
Sorry, residential.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any more questions or comments on this one? Okay, so we will need to, the recommendation is to agree the policy change that foster care skill level fees will increase in line with the national minimum allowance for the financial year 27-28 and 28-29 up to the maximum of 4%. Agree that policy will be reviewed at the end of this time period, and agree that funding of £50,000 be diverted from placement budget and allocated to foster care loan schemes. Do we agree? Thank you very much, Dean. Thanks. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is agenda item number 13, which is on page 161, and it's our stay input policy, and we've got Charlotte coming to present this one. Thank you. And Dean. Okay, let's begin.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to just talk to you about the stay and put policy and just give a brief outline of the purpose of the paper today. The paper presents Sheffield's updated stay and put caring policy, which replaces our previous 2019 policy and reflects current legislation, national guidance and local practice. It sets out how Sheffield supports our care experienced young people to remain living with their former foster carers where this is in their best interests. Stay and put matters because it means that young people can stay in their homes. It supports improved outcomes in education, employment, emotional well-being and stability. And we know that young people do better when they can leave care gradually rather than being required to move on at 18. The policy has been updated to clarify the roles and responsibilities across children's social care, leaving care and fostering. It strengthens expectations around early planning and provides clear, consistent decision making and management oversight. Hopefully within the policy that you can see that we outline the support that will be provided to foster carers prior to stay and put arrangements, but also post stay and put, where they will have the support of the stay and put coordinator to continue to support them with that post 18 journey for our young people. The policy supports Sheffield's community parenting responsibilities by promoting stability and belonging and reducing the cliff edge transitions at 18, supporting better long-term outcomes for our care experienced young people. And hopefully it provides clarity and consistency for staff, carers and partners and strengthens our governance and oversight of our stay and put placements. Any questions?
Thank you, Charlotte. I've got a few, but I'll bring in Councillor Whittaker first. Thank you.
I think the policy was certainly long overdue an update, and I think what we've got now is a really good policy, so thank you for all the work that's gone into that. When you meet with, you ever meet with foster carers, they always say that they treat their foster children like if they were their own children, and that's how they want it to be and how important it is. And this goes a long way to fit in with that, because at the end of the day, we don't, with our own children, we don't get them to 18 and then say, you know, goodbye, you're on your own, because I mean, a lot of growing up happens between the age of 18 to 21. So I think it's really good that we've got this facility whereby young people can stay with their foster family. I think that there should never be they shouldn't be put in difficult financial situations if they choose to do it. And I think it's a really excellent policy. Obviously, there's on the other end of it whereby we potentially lose foster parents, and that's the downside of it, isn't it? And I don't know what we do to solve that apart from keep trying to recruit more foster parents. But I think recently speaking to a foster parent whose foster child was staying with them over 18, and she'd been with her for quite a lot of years, and the sort of passion that, you know, she's my daughter, I don't want her to go, I want her to stay where she feels safe, and I think that's excellent. But then I thought, when I asked this lady, will you be carrying on as a foster? No. You know, and I thought, that's the downside of it, isn't it? So, but thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Any more questions? Councillor Mellington.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to echo what Councillor Whittaker said. You know, obviously it's really overdue and it's great work being done. I've just got a question about sort of consultation with the stay and put carers. It mentions that you've sort of had in-depth discussions with 2 carers. Do you anticipate there's going to be any issues when you sort of roll it out to the others? You know, and what might they be concerned about, if they are concerned about anything?
I'll start to respond if that's okay. I think in reality, I think we have to expect that there will be a degree of question, challenge, pushback. because in terms of meeting the stay put requirements for each of our foster carers in Sheffield, each will have different expectations or requirements. And I think, as has already been said, it's important that we recognise that, because that's part of the planning process before a young person turns 18. It's trying to understand the particular needs of that child in that particular family for that particular period of time, and making sure that our staying put offer has got the right support package around that is the right one for that child and family. Therefore, we have to be creative and more diverse in the kind of composition of those packages of support. So I think at the minute, could we say confidently today that we would meet the expectations of our carer base? Probably not. In reality, we need to have further conversation as we develop the policy into practice and make sure we can demonstrate how we actually engage with foster carers at the time that's right for them, where we're negotiating and putting a pathway plan together for a young person to be able to remain staying put.
I think also just to say that the foster carers that I've consulted with are part of the wider fostering voices community as well. So even though it was two voices, they won't bring the voice of other carers forward. And also the number of carers that I've spoken to already about the stay put policy or moving forward have welcomed the updated policy, because it hopefully provides more clarity and really ensures that early involvement for our carers in the planning and the pre-staying put, so that we can make sure that plans are in place and that there is clarity around what they're moving into and what support they'll get for young people post 18 and for them as carers.
Thank you. That's really reassuring. I really like the individualised nature of what you were talking about, and not having a blanket approach. So that's really welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments on this one? Councillor Bannister.
I just wanted to say that I thought the part about the potential university support was excellent. The fact that it gives the allowance of at home or potentially in another city, it just struck me as a really obvious thing to do, and I'm amazed we've not been doing it already. So thanks for putting that in.
If I could just respond to that as well, just to say that obviously we're working now towards looking at all outcomes for young people, and university being one option, but equally when young people go on to university, their family circumstances, albeit fostering family and potentially birth family at times, working collaboratively together and thinking about the university, their access to all the resources as part of their university support package needs to be again individualised, so that we're not just saying we've got a one-size-fits-all response to a university request, because we have to be able to adapt and flex as those young people go through those university years, and make sure that we kind of recognise that.
Thank you, everyone. Any more questions or comments on this one? No? Thank you very much. Thank you. So the recommendation is that we agree the policy for stay put providers with implementation from the 1st of April 2026. Do we agree? Thank you very much. That's agreed. Okay, so this brings us on to agenda item number 14, where I'll have to ask Councillor Bannister if he wouldn't mind stepping away from his seat due to his declaration of interest. And it's on page 209 of your pack. And Joe Horrobin is coming to present this item with Emily. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. I am just going to quickly introduce this. This item is for approval for Sheffield's approach to managing and deploying the Children, Families and Youth Grant. It brings together a number of national funding streams into a single, more flexible grant that supports early help, prevention and targeted support for children, young people and families across the city. So I'm going to hand over to Emily, who is the absolute expert on the nth degree of detail in this.
Thanks, Jo. Good afternoon, Chair, members. I'm Emily Ward. I'm Strategic Commissioning Manager overseeing part of this report, so what is the Families First Partnership Programme, which is the children's social care reforms that are happening. The Children, Families and Youth Grant that obviously this item relates to sets out how Sheffield will receive
and manage and allocate the 41.9 million that we're receiving from the government over the next 3 years. The report also asks committee to approve the delegation of funding decisions for specific parts of the grant to ensure smooth delivery and compliance in line with historic agreements that we've had for similar funding. So essentially, the government have simplified a number of grants into one single children, families and youth grant. And so that essentially brings together 5 previous funding streams, three which were allocated to the Families First Partnership Programme, one for the Pupil Premium Plus Post-16 grant, and then one for the Holiday Activities and Food Programme, which you might hear referred to as HAF. And they've said essentially the purpose of the consolidation is to reduce the admin burden on local authorities, increase that flexibility and long-term planning for local services, and support more joined-up support of children, young people and families. The grant directly supports the council plan priorities, so ensuring children are safe, belong, thrive and can build a successful future in Sheffield. Obviously, there's a lot of information in the report given the amount of grants that it covers, so I will just try and give a highlight overview of the background and the context and what progress has been made over the last year in terms of these grants. So, first up, the Families First Partnership Programme, or FFPP. So it's a national reform led by the Department for Education, aiming to shift children's social care away from the crisis support towards earlier family help that keeps families together. The key delivery elements, which you may have read, are about the family help, support, the multi-agency child protection teams, and also family group decision making. The programme is very much supported by system enablers, so co-design, partners, service users, enhanced multi-agency governance and engagement, and alignment with statutory guidance. So, for example, they're working together to safeguard children. Over the past year, we've had significant groundwork that's taken place in Sheffield, so really strong co-production shaping those 3 strands of the reform. We've also demonstrated progress against short and medium-term objectives that were set out at the start of last year. And we've also got regular engagement and consultation, which has strengthened that shared ownership across partners into the city. We've now got dedicated work streams that drive delivery, learning and problem solving across the system. And the progress is monitored through programme leads meetings, ensuring that we've got that clear governance in place, escalation and accountability. The upcoming grant funding will support that transformation and new service delivery, with co-design from children, families and young people, the next steps. Just for additional context, the Families First Partnership Programme funding increases by 34% in 26-27 and 27-28 to 11.7 million compared to the 8.7 million that we received in 25-26. And that's very much designed to enable that system transformation and new service delivery. However, the funding decreases from 11.7 million to 10 million in year 3, highlighting the need to support transformation and settle into business as usual after that system transformation happens. A proportion of this spend is already committed to maintain existing preventative services that was identified under the previous grants, and detail of this can be found in the financial section 10 of this report. We do have over 4.5 pages of grant conditions aligned to the Families First Partnership Programme that SCC need to adhere to in terms of receiving this funding as we continue to develop the reforms. In terms of the Pupil Premium Post-16 funding, the virtual school manages this, and it mainly funds extra tuition, educational equipment and targeted support for children in year 12 and 13 who are looked after. Funding can be allocated flexibly through education providers or social workers, depending on what meets the young person's needs best. And all spending is recorded through each young person's personal education plan. The virtual school submits an annual return to the DFE detailing that grant allocation every year or 2. And just in terms of the progress, the post-16 pupil premium grant was first received by Sheffield in September 2021 as we were part of the DFE pilot for that. It was £75,000 a year, but recently increased to £118,000 last year. It's not specified in the local government finance settlement how much the 26-27 allocation will be explicitly, but we expect approximately 100,000. The virtual schools are funded in English for speakers of other languages, so ESOL Summer School, over the last 2 years to support the unaccompanied asylum seeker children, and consisting of small groups ESOL sessions for new arrivals where there's a delay in accessing college provision. The virtual schools have also used the grant to support educational aspirations, for example, university visits, and have also partnered with Sheffield College to use some of that funding to purchase resources. It does require an annual evaluation to the DFE, but carries no additional specific grant conditions, unlike FFPP. And then just finally, the holiday activities and food programme, so HAF, which you may have heard of, again, national DFE scheme, providing free holiday activities and nutritious meals for children that are eligible for benefits-related free school meals. Around 27,000 Sheffield children are able to attend each year, and Sheffield's delivered HAF since 2021. In that time, we've developed a really strong, coordinated model shaped by collaboration across schools, voluntary partners, grassroots groups, sports providers and creative partners. It's very much built on the strong relationship with HAF coordinators in communities, local providers, to really ensure that we've got that high quality level of provision across the city. And that established delivery approach provides a solid foundation for continued development through 26 to 29. In terms of progress, in summer 2025, 23.9% of eligible free school meal children attended at least one activity, which has been the strongest in the last 5 years. And the hub and spoke model strengthens capacity building and links between VCF organisations, schools and specialist providers. The council submits post-delivery reports to the DFE and attends national and regional meetings to shape future developments. I'll not go through the approvals because I know Councillor Dale, you'll go through those in a minute, but just in terms of the financial headlines, as part of the Children, Families and Youth Grant, Sheffield will receive 14.6 million in total in 26-27, 14.5 million in 27-28 and 12.8 million in 28-29. And over the 3 years for each programme, there's 33.4 million that is ring-fenced for the Families First Partnership Programme and 8.2 million that's ring-fenced for the HAF. And again, the grant conditions for FFPP and HAF are detailed and very prescriptive. So just in summary, this grant very much strengthens Sheffield's ability to support children, people and families through early help, targeted educational support and inclusive holiday provision, and delegating authority ensures timely, compliant decision-making and continuity across all parts of the programme. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Emily. Any questions on this one? Councillor Mallinson?
Yeah, thanks for all of that and all the work that's going on to try and coordinate all of this. And I think it is overall a very good idea to simplify, you know, how these things work. And so I'm absolutely in favour of that. What I want to talk about is the HAF element of things, the holidays, which has been an amazing success in Sheffield. And, you know, we've got some incredible providers. I was talking to one of the senior leaders of one of the major providers in Sheffield at another meeting, and the conversation went on to what's happening with the HAF. And I was very worried to hear that there were major concerns, well, he had major concerns, and he said they were widespread, I don't know, but particularly about changing requirements from the Department for Education. So the HAF, so maybe you can just confirm that they're wanting, I think it's a minimum of 4-hour sessions, and some sessions which are more complex. So there might be a simple session which is just football training for 4 hours, and there's other sessions which might be a carousel of physical activities and crafts and so on. The simple sessions don't need Ofsted registration, but the more complex ones, which are actually going to be far more useful for you know, and inclusive, do need Ofsted registration, which is a new thing. Obviously, all these groups are already being subject to the normal safeguarding requirements, and that is in place. I'm very concerned about Ofsted being brought into the mix, and this gentleman was saying how that's going to be very off-putting for some, and may indeed lead to a reduction in the number of people able to provide provision, which is really, really disappointing. So the question is, has there been any consultation with the HAF providers on this?
Sorry, Toby, can you turn your microphone off?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I think that was me pressing the wrong button. I'll take that question, thank you. You're right, the holiday activities and food programme has been a huge success in Sheffield, and I think it's a really well regarded programme as well. accessed by a lot of children. The plans from Department for Education are that any provider delivering HAF will be able to refer and to register, even if they're not required in accordance with Ofsted regulations to register. So there'll be an option to be a volunteer registration. At this point in time, there isn't a requirement to be registered with Ofsted if you don't meet the current requirements for that. You are absolutely right to highlight that this holidays, activities and food is being looked at as part of that continuum of childcare that ultimately supports working parents potentially as well. And there is a need for us to, as a system, understand that whole spectrum, that whole offer. We have really good working relationships with our HAF providers, and we bring them together on a very regular basis. It's one of my other teams who lead on that, and we will be working with HAF providers and with colleagues who work in the childcare part of commissioning as well, to ensure that we really understand what the challenges might be for the sector, what this means for providers, whether they be Ofsted regulated currently or not, and to work with the sector as we have done going back 20 years ago when out of school clubs were sort of pushed sometime back in my past. So we work very closely. The voluntary community sector make up a really, really important part of our offer to children and young people. We couldn't deliver early years, holiday activities, youth activities without that sector. So we will continue to work really closely with them. And it's the same team who administer the holiday activities and food who lead on commissioning the sector, the voluntary sector as a whole for the council. And we are looking at, we will look at the impact of any changes should they come down the track at as and when they do.
Obviously, these changes that are coming in imminently, would you be able to speak to the providers about this in particular and sort of report back so that we, just so we've got either reassurance or a flag that there is widespread concern, if there is widespread concern, and then we can discuss as a committee what we can do about that, and how we can support them.
Absolutely. We regularly, as we do with any other market, if you like, and I hesitate to call the voluntary community faith social enterprise sector a market, and I think they are starting to not be sure about the word sector, in fact, to be fair. But we work with them and to look at viability and risks and changes that will affect them. So we continue to do that, and I'm very happy to bring an update back to committee on, the response from providers. But at this point in time, there isn't a requirement for them. If they're not currently needing to register and they don't meet the threshold for registration, then they don't have to register. There isn't a shift in that requirement at this point. Sorry?
Emma's done webinars with.
Sorry, yeah, we have run webinars with providers as well of the holiday activities and food programme. So we will continue to run those kind of activities. We have in-person meetings and we have webinars. So yeah, we are working with them.
Chair, I mean, it would be good to have some sort of how's it going sort of thing in a few months.
Councillor, yeah, I was just about to come in actually on that. So I also, obviously, working in the voluntary and community sector, have these conversations quite often with people. And one of the concerns that the smaller providers do have, HAF's always been 4 hours a day for 4 days a week for however many weeks a year. But the smaller providers, and there are, and I wouldn't say that football is a kind of not, if you're speaking to somebody who's providing a football session, the planning and all the work that has to go into that, I wouldn't say it's an easier session to plan than anything else in any sport or creative. So I know that there are, and I keep forgetting this word, but there are exceptions where people won't have to become Ofsted registered. The fear is that the smaller organisations that maybe offer play or something more creative that's not led by a sports leader or coach will then have to go down the route, because they are caring for children for more than 2 hours a day. They will have to then become formal childcare and register with Ofsted. And I believe that that is the worry of across the sector. And I think what we, and I understand that we do speak to the sector and do have webinars and face-to-face meetings, but I would be interested to know is, are we feeding that back to the DFE on behalf of the sector? And if this is the route in which we're going, because, you know, if people can still deliver play and be Ofsted registered, that's great. But a lot of the organisations don't have the capacity to do that. And so are we able to liaise with the DFE about building capacity? Because if this is what we're wanting, this is what the DFE are requiring, is there something in there that says that these organisations will need capacity and support if this is a have to? Or what are the alternatives, and what are the ways in which we can support people to not have to go down that route of becoming Ofsted registered? So what I was going to propose, and I don't know if I can, is to add another recommendation into the recommendations, is that we would also work with providers and the DFE to address any concerns and help to build capacity for smaller providers. I don't know if we can put that in, because it says here that we will approve the holiday activities for food delivery approach and the model, which has run successfully since 2021. There is clearly some anxieties around the model, and I think we need to make that commitment to be able to work with the sector and the DFE to address any concerns. Although you will be doing that, I think we should maybe, can we formally say that that is what we're doing, Sherry? And then we could probably get something on the work programme so that we've got a regular update from officers and providers. Yes, thank you. But I know that you do already do it, but it's not formally in the recommendations that we can do that.
Yes, very happy to report back and to share the kind of ongoing sort of evaluation and risk sort of assessment for the sector. That is something that I've talked with my team about already, is to understand, you know, what the implications of this is, and to work with my colleagues across belonging and children and families to look at that whole spectrum and understand that whole picture for children, particularly the school aid play agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, obviously, if that's to do with looking at it as an overall risk, what you can't do is not within your remit, is to obviously lobby the DFE and say that you don't agree with this new policy. That isn't something we can do. But obviously, if it's just about officers going away and feeding back any analysis and risks that you're looking at, and any, you use the word consultation, but I don't think it's so much that. But you are in dialogue, aren't you, with the providers?
And
so I think
DFE.
it's having an update for members so that they can see that.
Yeah, we are on regular webinars with DFE as well, and attending, you know, workshops around this. So yes, we have lots of opportunity to feed that back, and we will feed back here and to DFE on our assessment with current providers.
Thank you. So can we just agree on some wording here then? Because would that be to work with providers to address concerns and help to build capacity for smaller providers? And I think if we could just have it as that on the recommendations, and then we haven't got the DFE bit in.
Sorry.
Although you're doing that anyway.
Yeah, sorry. Very happy to work with providers to understand the potential impact. I think we would have to be mindful about additional resource for additional support. But what we have done in the past is to try to make sure that we work with the voluntary sector and signpost them to support that is available to them elsewhere. That is not a huge offer these days. But I think we need to be careful about raising expectations about the degree of support we can put in. But we absolutely will seek to work with them, as we already do, to understand their viability and to talk to them about what the challenges are.
Thank you. Can we just pause the meeting for a minute to decide on wording? Is that all right? Because we want to make sure it's right in the recommendations. Thank you. Thank you everyone, and thank you for your patience for anyone watching. Thank you for collaboration for everyone in the room. So just at the end of this then, as part of what I'm proposing is that we add a recommendation to the report which will read: to work with all of our HAF providers to address concerns and risks and to feed back to this committee and the DFE. Can somebody second that, please? That's Councillor Mallinson has seconded that. Thank you. Are we all happy with that? Okay. So at this point then, I would like to just read out the recommendations unless anybody else has got any more questions or comments on this item. Councillor Bashram.
Yeah, I just before that, I just wanted to mention that, you know, the HAFs are absolutely, obviously from the engagement I've had, brilliant work, and thank you for all of that, what you're doing with the providers, because obviously our providers are the ones that are linking directly with the local vulnerable families, and the work is brilliant, the impact is positive, and we definitely need to continue these. So I just want to say thank you with her.
Thank you everyone. So the recommendations are quite lengthy. So it's to note the developments and plans within the programme that are held in the Children, Families and Youth Grant. This includes Families First Partnership Programme and the Pupil Premium Plus Post-16 activity and the Holiday Activities and Food Programme. We wish to approve the delegation of the Families First Partnership Programme funding and the Pupil Premium Plus Post-16 grant to the Strategic Director of Children's Services, and approve the delegation of the Holiday Activities and Food Grant to the Director of Integrated Commissioning, including award new grants from any programme under spend, withdraw funding as necessary and in line with this report and the conditions of the grant funding agreement. We would also like to approve the Holiday Activities and Food Delivery approach and model, which has run successfully since 2021, and approve the allocation of Holiday Activities and Food Grant funding to deliver partners, including schools, VCFSE partners and organisations that will provide a vast range of cultural and sporting activities across Sheffield. And then we would like to add the recommendation which we've just agreed. Are we all agreed? Thank you very much everyone. Thank you very much Joe, and thank you Emily. This now takes us to agenda item number 15, which is on page 277, and Councillor Bannister can come back. So this is Meredith's Strategic Director's update report. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just take you through this quickly. The first part of the item is around the risk outside the home strategy, which we are going to be circulating later this week or the beginning of next week, and we'll be coming back to June committee. There will also be a briefing session for you on Thursday around the risk outside the home strategy, but it gives you a flavour of what will be within there and how we are going to be really focusing on how we support our children around risk outside the home and also parents. You'll be aware that the District Commander, Jamie Henderson, sent out a letter as well this week, which went to all parents, or is going to all parents through the school route, which is reminding parents about knowing where their children are, and also about the risk of children carrying knives as well. And that links through to the work of the ROTH strategy and also Children's Safeguarding Board as well. We've got a quick update on the Bright Spot survey. This is a moment in time update. The survey is still continuing, so information is still being gathered from children and young people, and we will bring that back fully for you. But you did raise wanting to have some information around it, so this is a snapshot of information, but as I say, the survey is still open, and so until it closes we won't be able to give you further information or indeed information which is set across other local authority areas. Some staffing updates are there. So we have recruited Jo Laidlaw from Wakefield, who is our AD for SEND. So that's a really exciting appointment. We've already talked about Lindsay Knight moving on. We've got Dean Howson, who you've already met, who's presented a paper for you, and Lindsay Mortimer, who will be starting her role on the 2nd of April as another Assistant Director in Children and Families. And then finally, and probably linking to the Race Equality Partnership event that was held yesterday, there has been we are rolling out anti-racist training across children's area, and senior leaders have already undertaken or will have completed the 4 training sessions on anti-racism by this Thursday. It gives, we are investing a considerable amount of money in this. It's a 12-hour block of sessions which create a safe space for us as leaders to have conversations about anti-racism, challenging ourselves and our own unconscious biases, and that's being rolled out to leaders across children's area, and is a really worthwhile reminder of the importance of us to focus in on this for our staff, but also for our children. And we know that, for example, there is a higher likelihood of you being excluded from school if you are Roma or Black Caribbean. And then we have, as ever, the academy conversion data as well for you. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on Meredith's report? Councillor Mellison.
I just want to, it's about the bright spots thing. Firstly, there's a paragraph in the middle which says children in Sheffield reported more positively than children looked after across 26 other local authorities. And, you know, so it's continued fantastic news. So I'd just like to sort of say, you know, a massive thank you to all the people who work with looked after children and who enable these fantastic outcomes. I think it's a great success story. I just want to also talk about the ethnicity data, as I always do, because we have here, this is a survey of looked after children, so we do know the ethnicity of the cohorts of children. So it shouldn't be difficult at all to provide comparative data to see to see the ethnicities of the children who have actually responded, and whether we're getting the right mix of children responding, or whether any ethnicities or whatever are not included for some reason or other. So, as with any ethnicity graph, it's not really much use unless you've got some comparator. And I think in this case, it's very easy to get a comparator. You do know the cohort. So I just, again, ask that in future we see ethnicity data with comparators, please. Thank you.
And we'll certainly provide that when we have the full survey and the survey's been completed, so that will be part of the full report that we bring back to you.
Thank you.
Any more questions on this one? Okay, thank you very much. So it is the recommendation for Meredith's report is that we note the Strategic Director of Children's Services report and agree key activities for the coming months. Do we all agree? Thank you very much. We're now on to agenda item number 16 on page 287, and this is the Children's Performance Framework Quarter 3, and Sally and Steve are going to be presenting this. Thank you.
All set? Okay, so I'll talk through the first section. I've also been given several questions which I'll try to answer as I'm going through as well. So on page 302, so the first set of data I'm looking at, number of families registered with a family hub has gone down slightly. The total number of families, which is one of the questions, is an estimated figure of 62,949. Now, in many ways, it's good for families to be registered with a hub, but that's not necessarily the marker of success. The marker of success is obviously the outcomes, which we'll go on to talk about in terms of the outcomes for children and families. We can increase the number of families registering with a hub easily with kind of a range of different automatic registrations, etc. So that in and of itself is a quality indicator, if you like. So I'll just go through and pick out some core elements. So we've got the percentage of children meeting developmental milestones at 2 years, which is a significant outcome and a marker of quality, has improved slightly. We're just about in line with Yorkshire and Humber averages with this, and slightly above England, which is positive. Percentage of children with a good level of development in terms of school readiness improved slightly in relation to this, but we have more work to do in order to be able to come in line with England averages. We're a few percentage points below that. In terms of this area as a whole, I've mentioned before that next month we've invited the Local Government Association in to conduct a peer review for early years, which I think is going to be really important. We are also actively doing as part of our SEND improvement, a review of speech and language support. Is currently commissioned by a multitude of different providers, including schools, multi-academy trusts, NHS, local authority, which what it does, that is it's good, well-intentioned work, but it fragments the system. So we're reviewing through a range of test and learn pieces how we actually streamline that support for children and families in this particular area of work. In terms of who calculates the targets was another question. The majority of targets are set within service based on historical performance and aspiration to meet comparative positions. Also, there are a number of set nationally or agreed regionally with the Department of Education as well. And in terms of what's been done to address funded early learning, we're doing a range of things in relation to that. I've talked to the committee about that before. It's an area where I do think we can make significant progress and need to make significant progress. It's different by community to community. So in some communities there are particular challenges or perspectives based on cultural norms in relation to some of these things. That doesn't mean to say that that's a final position in relation to that. It just means that our approaches to engagement need to change. We're also building in 6-month intervention and support opportunities with families to discuss childcare arrangements in relation to this, and also are on top of the data on a community by community basis, which we weren't before. So there's an inordinate amount of work going in relation to that, and it's not just about the 7 hubs that we've got remaining. It's about what does that look like across localities, cross sector as well, which is really important. Okay, so I'll move on to the next page, which so there's more in terms of early years. You can see I've already mentioned about funded early learning, which has been a worsening position, and I've talked about what we're doing there. In terms of you've already had in terms of admissions, you had something in relation to admissions already. So that's an area where we're doing okay. There are always challenges with admissions, but Sheffield is more or less in line and doing well in relation to those areas of work. In terms of education, now Sheffield is interesting because it's got some really strong examples of education and really strong examples of practice, but also in terms of some of our more disadvantaged communities in particular, that there's an imbalance in terms of some of the academic achievement. Now, some of that is around, individual schools are working hard, individual multi-academy trusts are working hard, we have good support from Sheffield, but sometimes those things can happen in isolation of each other. And so there's not currently a single unified approach in terms of tackling some of these challenges, or a single unified approach in saying this is what the city is doing, for example, in terms of English and maths, this is what the city is doing. All of it, we've got individual schools and multi-academy trusts doing that. The proposal is that that I've been discussing with colleagues in the sector is what we actually need to do is really get on top of our data in terms of what's actually happening for these children and young people in these localities, in these areas, with these things. So we're really specific about exactly what needs to be done. And then, on that basis, based upon that identified need, develop a strategy and approach with schools, with multi-academy trusts, with the DFE around this is exactly what we need for Sheffield, this is the needs of children, this is their lived experience, this is what the data is saying, and this is what we actually need to do. So that's a big piece of work proposed, and certainly with this committee support, we'll be reporting back any work in relation to that area of work. I've also just brought all of the maintained schools together. We have 40 odd of these. Brought them all together the week before last, where we weren't necessarily meeting them as much as we historically did. So I'm now changing that. We're bringing all of them together. Really positive. There was so much positivity in the room from those schools wanting to be local authority schools, wanting to support. We did a quick skills audit in the room around, who was particularly good at EAL, who was particularly good at phonics, who was particularly good at Key Stage 4. And it was amazing, just in the room, just in that one morning, people really clambering to offer support. So we're going to be doing an awful lot more of that and really kind of pulling together what we need to do in relation to education, because I would say this is, as a teacher, wouldn't I? But I don't think there's anything more important that we need to do in order to be able to make progress for Sheffield. Okay. So many pieces of paper. I've already mentioned about Key Stage 4. That's one of the areas of challenge and what we're doing in relation to these things. We fare better post-16. So in terms of post-16 in the city is an area of improvement, which is really positive. It doesn't mean to say that we can't do more, but this is an area of a better news story than perhaps our secondary and some of our primary provision. We're in terms of needs, we're about in line with our core cities in relation to needs. A slightly worsening position, but that's because we're in the best position we've got with our not known data, which means that our data is more accurate than it's ever been in the history of Sheffield. And it means also that we're in touch with more young people than we ever have been. That means that our needs have gone up slightly, but I would advise that we take that, because actually we know where these young people are, and we know what we're doing, and that's only going to improve the overarching position in relation to needs. Let me just check the questions. Unlike other targets, why is the persistent absence target so easily compared to our stat neighbours? So when the target was set at the end of the academic year 2024, all school absence was performing at 27%. Secondary persistent absence was a full 10% higher than today at 34.7%. Improvements have been made in the review of targets to stretch performance that can be made in relation to that. What I would say about attendance is that persistent absence is important. It's not necessarily our central issue. We've got more of an issue with severe absence, so children who are in school less than 50% of the time. So there's an inordinate amount of work, and a real priority area in terms of working with schools, working with our attendance team, who is actually really strong, working with families on a support first model, really trying to encourage, support, enable those children and families to get those children into school wherever possible. Sometimes it's not possible or appropriate, but in the majority of cases it is, and we're doing an awful lot of work in relation to that particular area. Okay, so key stage 5. So education, health and care planning, there's another question in relation to this. So this was an area that was identified as systemically weak in the inspection, which was a year ago. We still have lots of challenges in this area. I'm confident that with the changes that we are making, both as a partnership and within the service, because the service is they're only the recipients of what's actually going on in the system in terms of education, health and care. So it's not just about the Sensars service, who are actually almost the gatekeepers. So there can be some improvement there, but that's not just what it's about. So we're doing an awful lot of work with the SEND strategy and all of this work. So I'm confident that with those changes, we're going to start seeing some improvement. We're not quite there yet in relation to that. But the kind of the heavy lifting, if you like, has been done in relation to the strategy, the restructuring, the additional investment. But we're not there yet, but you know, having spoken to Ofsted and DFE with our external support that we've got, they're about where we thought we would be in relation to the improvement journey, which is positive. Currently, though, we've got a lot of work to do to change some of the practice in the wider system across education, health and care, and also what is potentially sometimes professionals and parents don't feel that there's another option for them currently. So we need to be able to acknowledge that and then also work with what we need to. Okay, so that's education, health and care planning. I think now I'm handing over to Sally.
Yep, so I will go to some questions that's been raised, and so that's jumping back to page 306, and a question around the neat figures for our care leavers. And so our care leavers figures are not as good as our stat neighbours at Yorkshire and Humber. I think it's really important to bear in mind that we have really low numbers of looked after children compared to other local authorities. So the actual number of children is lower than our comparators. But it's linking to Steve's comment about our data is much more improved than it has been. So about knowing about the status of our children and young people. We're also doing that piece of work with our care leavers about being ready for work, whether that's employment, education or training. So we've got 13% of our children that are not ready for work due to illness or disability. But we also know that we've got issues around that emotional well-being, about confidence. And I think I've talked to people before about the Leaving on a Positive project that's now had 80 referrals, and that's about working with our care leavers just around their emotional well-being, about confidence and about being able to move to right outcomes for them. And then linking that in with our Staying Close project, and that's got resources around employability, around CV writing. Our children's involvement team have done the Your Hired toolkit, which is aimed at employers being able to understand different needs of our care leavers and how we can support. But it is something that we're persistent about, and we have got an EAT panel looking at what tailored opportunities might be for our care leavers as well. And I think on to the next questions, a question around kinship care, and is there a blip in the figures with kinship care? So what we know is it's really evolving. So when we know that kinship's care is working, our figures are changing all the time, because children are placed with family members under the kinship arrangements, and more often than not will move to a permanency agreement such as special guardianship or child arrangement order. So it is a persistent throughput. That don't mean that what we're doing is not working. It is just about how we're working with families, and that really appropriate moving on, and about how we're supporting children in those permanency arrangements with the families. And I think just thinking about that, looking at us looked after children as a whole, at the minute 20% of all our looked after children have a permanency plan of a return to family, and whether that's birth parents or whether it's extended family, and just making sure that that's really key to what we're doing for our care leavers. Looked after children. I think the next one, it was a question around our youth justice figures, and so this is onto page 308, and in respect of, is this the figure for the whole year? And so it is about our comparator data relating to year ending 2024, because that's the latest data that's available. And where that's worked out is about looking at our first time entrants, and a calculation about the age 10 to 17. I can give you a whole calculation, but working that into per 10,000. So it is cumulative data. And I think that was the last comment or question for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was one about road traffic. How are we flagging the bad and worsening road traffic KSI figures with the TRC committee? As an outcome, I've got a full written response in relation to this. So as an outcome measure, this was flagged with the Finance and Performance Committee when the new data for 2024 was released in Q2, and then I have an extensive narrative in relation to that, which I can pass on to the committee.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Steve. Any comments or questions on this report? Councillor Chapman.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about this, but can I go back right to the very beginning? Page 302, family hubs. Now, there are only 7 council family hubs in Sheffield. The rest are all voluntary. Do your figures include figures from the voluntary sector, or are they just council?
This is just the council.
Just council. So we could actually be meeting target if we included the voluntary sector.
We could potentially, I suppose, it depends on the definition of hub, but you're right, we need to look at family hub network rather than family hubs. Yeah. So we need to think about the network in the locality. But you're exactly correct in terms of what the wider reach is.
Yeah, right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Any more comments or questions? Councillor Mollington.
Page 306, the exclusions. I'm not sure you picked that one up, but let me just find it.
Yeah, so we're doing an awful lot in relation to exclusion. So, for example, well, first of all, the exclusions are too high in Sheffield, and the reintegration rates are too low. So, for example, when a child is excluded and ends up in alternative provision, which is not necessarily a bad thing for some children, that is generally a one-way ticket for that child. So what we're doing is a number of things. So we've just worked with the multi-academy trust CEOs and also head teachers in relation to the model for how exclusions are reviewed. So previously it was a local authority team who were looking at it. That as is best practice, the head teachers back in the driving seat of that, so it becomes like a self-managing, self-policing system in relation to that, and we're obviously supporting and underpinning that work. The Ofsted framework has changed, so inclusion now sits at the heart of it. So that's positive and will be making some difference. Also, the school's white paper and the SEND reforms also have a significant role and a shift in relation to this particular area of work. In addition to that, we're also looking at our internal teams and how we connect, use data and support in relation to these children. And finally, as part of our SEND reforms, thinking about alternative provision as a strategy, and what does that actually need to look like in order to benefit our children for the city. So it's about, you know, rather than a one-way ticket into alternative provision where that becomes almost like an alternative special school, if you like. What we're looking at is what, as is best practice nationally, a 3-tier model where some of it is around inclusive mainstream, some of it is about a 12-week intervention, some of it is more specialist provision. All of those things need to take into account in order to effectively meet children's needs. So there's a lot of work to do in this particular area. There's a lot of work to do in relation to individual schools, but as I said about the education strategy and approach in relation to attainment, it's the same in relation to exclusions and or inclusion, if you like. And it's not just about SEND. Obviously, there's the virtual heads role, you know, we're confident that we've got a great team and we're further investing in that particular area as well, underpinning the work that Sally does. So we've got a lot to do, but we're confident about the direction of travel.
Thank you. I'd just like to reflect on and say, you know, how pleased I am that you're doing so much, having so much dialogue with head teachers and schools, you know, and really pulling them together, which is you know, a fantastic development, and you know, hopefully that will increasingly bear fruit.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so every I was at 3 schools yesterday in the city. So a couple of days a week, I'm out and about, and I'm meeting with Matt CEOs, meeting with head teachers, visiting schools, because there's no shortcut to that. We've got to develop the relationships. We've got to understand from their perspective about what's actually happening. And I'm really I visit schools more than most, and there's some brilliant practice in Sheffield. There's some brilliant, really hard-working people. The more that we can do to connect that, and the more that we can do to underpin and support it, the better outcomes we're going to be able to have with children and families. It's but there's no shortcut. We've got to do the miles.
And Sally, the social care stats on page 308, I think, sort of reflect what I was saying earlier about how effective we've been in social care. So again, you know, praise for the team on that one, and yourself as well, of course. There is on page 307, there's an item, family significant and sustained success. Let me just find it. 1 second. Oh, sorry. Percentage of the families achieving significant and sustained success against the National Supporting Families Programme targets. I was confused by this because it's sort of saying that 100% of families are achieving significant and sustained success, which didn't seem plausible.
The figure relates to 100% of eligible families, rather than 100% of families across the city. So it would be eligible families to the Supporting Families programme. I mean, it's yeah. There's a question whether that is indeed possible, but it's but that was certainly the aspiration as part of the programme.
So we, in terms of the numbers that we needed to achieve for the Supporting Families programme, so we achieved 100% of that target, not 100% of all families in Sheffield.
Okay, well, congratulations. And just one last thing, just about the KSI, the killed and seriously injured on our roads, you know, on page 309, I think that is, I just want to flag that with the committee. It's a really serious issue. These are children dying, obviously, or being, disabled. And, it does say that we should be talking to the TRC committee, and, there does need to be dialogue about how serious that is, and I'm sure the committee is concerned about the worsening figures, and we should be pushing colleagues to be implementing measures to improve road safety as much as we can. Thank you.
So if the committee's happy, the updates on this and the actions that's currently underway to improve the KSI there, for those to be circulated. I mean, we can go through them now if that would be helpful, or we can just, it's quite a chunky bit of narrative if you'd like that to be shared.
Maybe feedback in another meeting, or?
That would be great. Thank you very much. Anybody got any more questions or comments on this item? No? Okay. So the recommendation is quite long. Oh no, here we are. The recommendation is that we note the performance report update for Q3, agree to help shape what performance measures make up future reporting, and highlight any issues or concerns that we may wish to discuss in future performance reports. Do we all agree? Great, thank you. Okay, that brings us to our final item on the agenda item number 17, which is on page 313, and it's Q3 budget monitoring, and Jane will be presenting. Hi, Jane.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I'm Jane Milby, Assistant Director of Finance and Accounting, and I'll briefly introduce Q3 budget monitoring report for 25-26 with a focus on education, children and families. Members will be aware that the report's already been taken to the Finance and Performance Committee, so I'll keep the wider context high and focus on committee budgets, performance, risks and key issues to note. At a council-wide level, the Q3 position shows a continued improvement in our in-year finances. The forecast overspend's reduced from 23.6 million at Q2 to 18.9 million at Q3, a 4.7 million improvement over the quarter. That improvement reflects sustained progress in SEND transport, some stabilisation in children's services and the impact of corporate spending controls. It is important to be clear that the significant pressures remain, particularly in adults and children's social care and SEND. So while the direction of travel is improving, the overall position still requires tight financial discipline through the rest of the year. Turning now to this committee's position. At Q3, Education, Children and Families is forecasting a net overspend of 16.1 million against a budget of approximately 143 million. This is an improved position of 4.1 million in the quarter. One of the most financially pressured areas of the council, driven primarily by placements, SEND-related demand and transport costs. The most significant pressures sit within children and family services, including 9.3 million of pressure on placements. The chart on page 320 shows that whilst the number of looked after children remains fairly stable, the mix of placements has changed towards more higher cost provision over recent years. The children with disabilities budgets are under strain, with 1.4 million overspend, driven by rising numbers and costs of direct payments and short breaks. There's a 0.6 million overspend at Aldine House, linked to delays in moving to a full welfare model. 0.4 million pressure related to unaccompanied asylum seeker children, and 0.6 million of increased Section 17 and other emergency payments. The pressures are partially offset by staffing underspends, but the underlying demand remains challenging. Within belonging, the key pressures are a 2.5 million overspend on home-to-school transport, driven by higher pupil numbers, complex timetables and fleet capacity constraints, but this has improved in the quarter, contributing a 4.1 million improvement. Alongside the general fund position, members should also note the dedicated schools grant position, which is forecasting a 21.8 million in-year deficit for 25-26. This reflects the ongoing pressure with the high needs block and work underway on a deficit management plan to stabilise the position over the medium term. This also sits alongside government's commitment, subject to approval of local SEND reform plan, due to be submitted in June, to provide support towards historic high needs block deficits as part of the National SEND reform programme. In terms of the actions in place, there's a wide range of actions underway to manage both the in-year pressures and future demand, including continued review and challenge of high-cost placements, recruitment to the full Aldine House structure to support income generation, expanded use of personal travel budgets with 193 issued to date and greater use of targeting panels, route reviews to reduce single taxi occupancy, an inclusion-first approach to expand local mainstream and resource provision, ongoing work with travel trainers to support longer-term reductions in transport demand, and working jointly with education, health and wider partners to develop that local SEND reform plan, setting clear expectations on delivery, system leadership and strength and financial grip over a 3-year period aligned to national SEND reform requirements. Looking ahead, the Council's now got a benefit of a multi-year funding settlement, which does give us greater certainty over the next few years. That does provide some short-term stability, but it doesn't remove the structural challenges within education, children and families, particularly around SEND, placements and transport. For this committee, the medium-term focus remains on reshaping local provision to reduce reliance on high-cost external placements, embedding SEND transport reforms, strengthening DSG recovery and aligning service redesign with the wider Future Sheffield transformation programme. Future Sheffield is critical to moving away from short-term mitigations towards sustainable long-term solutions, supported by modernisation, productivity improvements and better use of data and digital tools. In summary, the Q3 position for the committee remains significantly pressured with a forecasted overspend of 16.1 million. The main risks continue to be placements, SEND and transport alongside the DSG sustainability, and the medium-term focus is firmly on transformation, SEND reform and sustainability, even with improved funding certainty. So happy to take any questions or explore any aspects of committee's budgets alongside service colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Any questions or comments on this report? No? Thank you very much, Jane. So the recommendation is that we note the updated information on the 25-26 revenue budget outturn as described in this report, including the detailed committee budget monitoring information and management actions provided, and note the targeted actions and work underway to bring the in-year forecasts overspend down. Do we all agree? Thank you very much. Thanks, Jane. Before you all go, this is our final meeting of the municipal year, so I would just like to take some time to thank all officers in this directorate for their constant commitment to our children, because we might not be in this committee after the elections in May. And I would also like to recognise the levels of transformation and improvement that are taking place across the directorate. I know there's so much work going on and it's really hard, and the commitment from officers is unmeasurable. And I would just like to also acknowledge the progress that has been made this year. There's been some fantastic pieces of work that are really showing, they're starting to bear fruit. And it's all about the children in our city. So I'd just like to thank you all. And I do look forward to seeing the outcome of all the work that you are doing. I know it's a long road and a lot of it is going to take a lot of turning round. So I'd like to thank you all. And I'd also like to offer a special thank you to Kelly, because this is Kelly's last meeting as well. So Kelly's leaving us. And on behalf of myself, and I'm sure probably Toby and Anne in particular, thank you for keeping us in check. Thank you for keeping us organised. Thank you for making sure we've got our papers. Thank you for helping us through the work programme and explaining things when we really don't understand it. And thank you personally from me for all the help that you've given me. So thank you to Kelly, but also thank you to all of the officers this year. Thank you.
Chair, can I extend our thanks to you, because you've worked extremely hard and guided the ship very well this year. And thank you to senior officers from us all. You're doing a good job and hopefully you'll still be sat there in May.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Thank you.
Dawn, can I just come in that? I want to second that as well and say I think you're the most passionate chair I've seen in this council, genuinely. And that is shown in this committee. There's 3 political parties and we somehow always agree. And no politics. And I think that's genuinely due to how seriously you take your role. And thank you to the senior officers as well.
Thank you.
Can I just come in there? I think on this committee, I like to think that we're not about politics, and what we're about is doing the very best for the children in our city. And I think that's what we all try to achieve that. And I think council officers, I've been on the committee for 5 years, and the changes that I've seen during that period of time the first few years, we got lots of, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but we didn't do anything very much. I'm sure you'd bear that out, Dawn. And now we're working at pace on things, and achievements are being made, and it's really good to see. And the amount of passion that everybody has, that really comes across. And I'm really sorry that we are losing good officers, but hopefully their replacements will just be as good. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair.